drafting policy language, implementing, or policy adoption. So let's kick it off with Ann Johnson from Berthoud.
Good morning. Thank you, Robin, and everybody from DOLA. My name is Ann Bess Johnson. I'm the Community Development Director from the town of Berthoud. We were really lucky to have a housing diversity plan underway, which then turned into a housing needs assessment. A part of our action plan outcome was to incorporate the fast track process. And our Planning Commission hearing is on October 9th. Followed by October 28th, the town trustees hearing, and then hopefully that second hearing on October 10th. DOLA has reviewed and has provided great comments and feedback to make some good tweaks. And I'll probably be going in on Sunday morning to make those final tweaks and get those back to DOLA for hopefully the final thumbs up before our code goes out in packets in the next 2 weeks to Planning Commission. But we're really excited and have learned a lot from DOLA. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Ann. And over to Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Bloomquist. I'm the housing coordinator for the city of Cortez. And on the call, we also have a couple of my coworkers, Helen West and Jason Armstrong. And it's possible that I may ask some of them to chime in the chat for if any of the questions stump me. I've been with the city of Cortez for almost a year now, about 11 months. And our status of the fast track Prop 123 requirements is that we have had a courtesy review of a draft done by DOLA staff. We are going to be presenting a more final draft to Planning and Zoning the first Tuesday in October, and then we're going to submit the what is approved presumably by Planning and Zoning to DOLA right after that. Make sure that we get approval before we take it to City Council for first reading end of October and second reading beginning of November. I'll also mention that we did a really comprehensive land use code revision that included a lot of affordable housing provisions and really prepared our community for these fast track proposals. But I will be going over that in future questions. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks, Lisa. And let's hear from Clay.
Hey, thanks, Robin. Thanks for having me this morning. Good morning, everybody. Clay Fricke with the City of Fort Collins. I'm the planning manager here at the city. Where we're at with implementation is testing some of the implementation ideas in order to achieve our 90-day fast track process. We contracted with a consultant to do an analysis of our current review process for affordable housing projects. They did a lot of stakeholder interviews with development review staff, decision makers, and consultants in town to identify the barriers to achieving 90-day review, and then they developed a set of 19 recommendations for us. And so what we're doing right now is taking some of those recommendations and testing them out on some projects that are going to be coming through the development review process to see how effective they are in getting us to 90 days. And without spoiling some of your future questions, Robin, I'll talk about kind of what the mechanics are looking like and where our review process is right now in current state. So anyway, that's where we're at, testing out ideas. We expect to bring something to DOLA for approval probably in the summer of 26. So thank you.
All right, and over to Nikki from Grand Junction.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Nikki Galehouse. I'm the planning manager with the city of Grand Junction. So we are excited to announce that we adopted our, sorry about that. Make sure that was silenced. We adopted our resolution and our fast track policies last night at our city council meeting. So we're very happy to have that piece on the books. So we revised our previous kind of expedited review process with the 90-day policy. We did a study as well about our process and have been implementing different pieces of that since probably May. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Thank you all so much for being here today. And, so many communities are doing interesting things and are at different stages of implementation. And as you've heard from our panelists, they haven't all, finished. They will tell you, we're not necessarily experts in this. We're still figuring this out, right? And so just wanted to highlight that this is a work in progress for so many communities, but those that are a little farther ahead probably have some great insights to share. So that's what today is all about. So moving on to our next question, I just wanted to ask our panelists to share, the law, the way the law is written really allows for different implementation efforts, and implementing fast track is going to look different from one community to the next because there's so much variation in existing procedures and code language. And so thankfully the law allows for a variety of local approaches. So as long as you can achieve the intended outcome, which is being able to complete the review process within 90 days per application, that's the goal. But I'd like each of our panelists to share whether their implementation effort involves land use code updates, they've touched on that a bit, or changes to administrative policies and procedures, or are there technology investments involved in streamlining the review process? And then lastly, how you codify these changes. So just quickly, if you've already kind of said that, recap whether it's, one or multiple of these in each of your communities. And if we could this time start with Lisa in Cortez and kick us off, Lisa.
Sure. So first off, we have been using the DOLA templates, and they've been really immensely helpful. So we're going to be getting a resolution, actually a couple of resolutions adopted, one of which is the DOLA resolution that says basically your process is already fast, and we as the town governing body, in our case, it's a city council, agrees that it's already fast and that we will codify it. So we're adopting that resolution. But in addition to that, we are also adjusting our land use code. And we also used the land use code formatting and some of the verbiage and we adjusted the verbiage, of course, to fit our community, but using the DOLA templates. So I highly encourage other communities to take a look at those templates and see if they meet your community's needs. They were a good place to start for us and really helpful. So kind of as I was implying, our process in the city of Cortez is already very fast. Our last affordable housing application took us 53 days to approve, but we of course know that we need to codify that it is a fast process. And so we are adjusting our land use code and putting in a whole section about incentives that are going to be given primarily to affordable housing developers. So we are adjusting our land use code is kind of the really short answer, and then backing that up with resolutions.
And Lisa, real quick, did you, when you mentioned templates, were you referring also to the published DOLA's template land development code that is kind of a model code with best practices, or just the materials provided on the Fast Track website?
Just the Fast Track stuff for right now is what we referenced.
Okay, great. Well, the template development land use code is also available. Maybe we can get that link put in the chat. And that is another tool that could potentially be helpful for those working on land use code updates. All right, let's go to Clay next.
Yeah, most of our work is on administrative policies and procedures. We have an administrative process that we moved affordable housing projects to last year and also too, we offer expedited review on affordable housing projects already. So it really is more focusing on some of our pre-application procedures and making sure that we get complete applications at the beginning, especially knowing that we need to review engineering documents in 90 days as well. I think that's been one of our challenges for achieving that 90-day review for planning. And so we're really trying to make sure that we are getting complete engineering documents round one, which will help us achieve that 90-day review. We're also splitting everything up between kind of our planning process and our building permit process. A lot of the recommendations from our consultant really focused on trying to streamline the building permit review process, since a lot of that is based on staff capacity, and those timeframes are not as predictable. And so that's going to be a separate segment of implementation that will be really important and critical. So some of these things we will probably end up codifying in our land use code via ordinance. So that is something that would come at a later date. But I think the main focus is on kind of those administrative policies and procedures.
Great. Nikki, in Grand Junction, I remember you had the city had adopted a policy back in 2022, and then now you've revised that original expedited review policy. If you could kind of fold that into your response here, just let us know how that worked.
Yeah, so we adopted a policy in, I think it was 22 or 23, that kind of just had some shorter timeframes that we were targeting or that we were committing to for affordable housing projects. And we just repealed that and replaced it with a new resolution that commits to the state required timeframe of the 90 days from a time of a complete submittal to the final decision. We chose to do it through a resolution with kind of the state parameters as the overarching guideline there. And then that gives us the ability to kind of manage how we do the administrative portion of that, and make adjustments as we go, and be able to kind of make tweaks and account for live on the ground changes that are necessary from an administrative standpoint. So that gives us a little more flexibility to respond to kind of what we're seeing, as long as we're still meeting that 90-day time frame. So that's kind of been our approach there.
Great. And over to Anne. You shared about the land use code, but anything else you'd like to share?
Sure. So site plans are administrative now, and that's how we would process a multifamily project. We're in the final week of polishing a total repeal and replacement of our land use code, and staff has taken that project on for this year. So we are doing a robust guidebook and workflow processes that will help applicants understand, and that guidebook will not, and the workflows obviously won't be codified. So those can be tweaked as we need them to change through time, as you know, we learn and do continuous improvement on those documents. We've been having work sessions with Planning Commission and the town board since last October, about every 6 to 8 weeks. So it's been an exhausting process. However, getting that political buy-in and going through all of the education and making sure we're all on the same page with their vision and values, with the community's vision and values when it comes to housing, when it comes to land development and the speed of development that Berthoud is facing, has been really important to make sure that we can all get on the same page. And that has been invaluable. So we're going to pass our code, our repeal and replacement of our land development code by ordinance. And then the guidebook and the workflow will just be the standalone documents that are referenced. And then 90-day, our engineering and our land use process will occur through the site plan. We'll have a very robust pre-application process. And then once the application is finalized, then Sorry, I've got a really ugly dog that just went through the background. Then once that is finalized, we're hoping that it will be a complete application upon submittal. So that will be a 90-day process. That will be engineering and the site plan. Building is a separate process, but once they've submitted, that can occur somewhat concurrently. If a development agreement needs to occur, that can occur somewhat concurrently as well.
Great, thank you. I was thinking that was a cute dog. All right. So before we move on to our next question, I did want to see if we had any other questions in the Q&A that we should address. Can my co-hosts help me with that, or shall we move on?
No questions yet.
Great. So folks in the audience, please feel free to post a question in the chat or in the Q&A, and we're happy to have audience questions as well today. All right. So again, some of you have mentioned it briefly, but how have you engaged key stakeholders so far? And, you know, when we talk about stakeholders, I think that means your local community, your leadership, and especially the development community, the folks that are moving through this review process with affordable housing projects. So interested to hear a little bit about what you've learned from those engagement efforts and how might it have shaped your policy approach. And let's go first to Nikki in Grand Junction.
Yeah, so I think one of the big ways that we engaged the stakeholders was through the study of our process. So we received a grant from DOLA to look at our review process and how we can remove bottlenecks and streamline the process. And in doing so, we did a lot of engagement with our development community and with our elected officials in terms of what they were seeing as the issues. And so that really gave us a lot of interaction with them in that regard. We also have a standing meeting, I would say once a month, every 4 to 6 weeks, with our some of the key stakeholders in our development community. And so when we have you know, issues that are coming up or process changes that we're considering making, we bring them to that group and kind of walk through what those might be and what issues they might see with them as well, and kind of go through that. So that is a good forum for us to really engage them with as well. And then we've done some workshops with our planning commission and our city council as well throughout the process.
Real quick, Nikki, before you wrap up, the external or internal stakeholders as well, like interdepartmental collaboration or external review agencies. And a great question in the chat from Dawn about education and or training with those other review partners.
Yeah, that's a great question, and a good one for us because we have a lot of them. We deal with quite a few different, both internal and external review agencies. I think we have up to like 40 or 50 review agencies that we can work with on any given project. And so during that actually process review study, we did engage a lot of those agencies, and we did an actual process mapping as part of it. And we brought those different review agencies into that process to help them understand the other pieces that they may not have understood, and also to help us better understand kind of some of the things that they were seeing from it as well. And then we do, as we make process changes, we do additional trainings with them as well. We have a development coordinator who reaches out and does a lot of that work with them.
Thank you. So let's go next to Clay. How have you engaged internal and external stakeholders?
The main way that we've engaged stakeholders has been through interviews. Our consultants interviewed, I think, 25 plus people about their experience with the review process, both internal to the organization and external to the organization. And that's what formed the basis of the recommendations for process improvements. Related to some of the questions in the chat, that included some of our external reviewing agencies. So like our water districts, we have multiple water districts in the city of Fort Collins, and also to members of the development community. And I think one of the biggest inefficiencies and bottlenecks in our process is just conflicting standards and comments amongst the different reviewing agencies. And so that's really what we're trying to focus on, is how do we resolve those conflicts before an applicant gets in the review process. And so that's really the main focus of our work. And then we want to use this as an opportunity to resolve those conflicts for all development applications, not just affordable housing projects. And so that's how we're trying to approach this particular implementation. So yeah, that's where our focus on kind of more the culture around development review and collaboration has been our main focus, because that's really the biggest inefficiency and bottleneck. Then what I would say too is we have an implementation team here at the city that is we have representatives from pretty much every major reviewing agency at the city of Fort Collins that's helping implement our strategies. And then we also have a group of external stakeholders, developers, applicants, et cetera, that we meet with every other month to give them status updates, run these ideas by them, and make sure that it's resonating with them. And then we're also testing out some of these concepts for applicants that are willing and able. So that's kind of the way that we're approaching stakeholder engagement and how it's been weaved throughout the implementation process too.
Great. And let's go next to Anne.
Thank you. So in late 2023, we did start a housing diversity plan, which did turn into that housing needs assessment. So we had a steering committee that involved Habitat for Humanity, Loveland Housing Authority did participate in our planning, the school district, the town board of trustees, and planning commission. We had several engagement opportunities with the community at large during that process. And then as an outcome of that spurred all of the, the 6 to 8 week touch-ins that we had then with the planning commission and the town board of trustees, mainly to make sure that we were aligned, because this does represent a change in thinking for Berthoud in particular, and growth is happening in Berthoud very, very quickly. So for staff and the elected and appointed officials, as well as the development community, we really need to make sure that we're all on the same page, that the vision from all of these different stakeholders are aligned. So we've been investing a lot of time and effort to make sure that we are aligned, and that has paid off very well. So there've been a lot of buy-in. And we have had some stakeholder engagement, a lot of stakeholders, the development community engagement. They have provided us with input into the code as well that we've been rewriting. And that's been wonderful feedback to hear from their perspective, what some of their hurdles are. One of the biggest hurdles that we encounter, and I'm sure we're not the only community, is development by design review. And that's one thing that we will be trying to put a stop to with this rewrite in our development code, and encouraging the development community to do their part to meet us at that 50-yard line. We want to be expeditious with all of our development review, not only fast track, but all of them. So we are going to require everybody to come prepared when they want to do development. We already do interdepartmental collaboration with our pre-application meetings. Several of our referral agencies are already at the table with those pre-application meetings, and they will be more intimately involved with the fast track applications. Fire, all of the special districts are involved. So it will be a good collaborative process, and we have spent a lot of time engaging those folks, because we'd much rather hear their input now than later. And also we have to be committed to pivoting and being really nimble and making changes as soon as they need to be made.
Thank you for underscoring, all of you, the importance of partnership with all those stakeholders and internal and external agencies. DOLA has been encouraging partnership. We feel like it's really key to getting there. And Lisa, in Cortez, I know that's a topic we've discussed with you. Could you please share how Cortez has been doing this?
Sure. So the community engagement process has also been a long process for the city of Cortez. And there was really extensive outreach that was focused on our land use code revisions. The entire land use code was revised and reimagined, and that was facilitated by an IHOP grant. As part of that land use code revision, a code review committee was established, and it's composed of realtors, developers, elected officials, citizens, etc. And that was greatly helpful. We got lots of feedback from that citizen review, or I'm sorry, from that code review committee. Additionally, in the land use code revision process, we had 40 community listening sessions. Some of those were in person, some of those were virtual. We had multiple public open house events. There were 4 different series of open houses, which included 7 in-person events and multiple virtual engagements. I will mention that we had experience with attempting to revise our land use code in the past and had not gotten the appropriate buy-in, and kind of learned that we really need that public engagement. There were additional public outreach and community events, including 8 of our Third Thursday events and other community events. We gave regular updates to anyone who signed up to receive information. We had our land use code advisory committee that I mentioned, and 10 different presentations to planning and zoning and city council. And then additionally, we had we conducted a housing needs assessment and accompanying housing action plan. And the process of getting the housing needs assessment and their findings, as well as the housing action plan, have really prepared, especially our elected officials, to support anything that's related to housing and really make it a priority, that make housing a priority for the city council, make them really help them to recognize the need and some strategies for getting there.
Thank you. And Lisa, we had one more question for you from the Q&A. It says, as a smaller community, do you work with separate entities for reviews like building codes? If so, how did you work with them on the code language and fast track timing? And I just want to highlight for folks that we've heard a lot of smaller communities, like a small municipality often has the building code issued by the county. And so there's that. And one thing we've been saying to folks is, that county is probably also working on fast track implementation. So maybe you can all get together and make sure that you have good agreement on how that handoff happens from the municipality to the county. But Lisa, go ahead if you could just briefly speak to that.
So I think we might need to get back to the person who asked that question. Maybe one of my coworkers who has been with the city a little bit longer, but I will point out that our process is already, like I said, quite fast. And our partners that we're working with, whether it be the sanitation district or a department within the city, they're very responsive and very fast already. Would need to get back to you about agreements with the county.
Just real quick, I want to give any of our other panelists a chance to weigh in if there's approach that
And I
you've
can
taken.
speak.
Yeah,
This is Helen
go
West
ahead.
from the city of Cortez. I can speak a little bit to that. And we can you guys hear me? I'm on the road. My husband is picking up wine grapes. So
Go right ahead, Helen.
All right. So we are kind of, I think, unique for a small municipality. Our department has strategically been building capacity for the last couple of years. So we adopt ICC building codes. Actually, uniquely, our Montezuma County does not have very regulated building codes. So we do the building inspections. As Lisa said, our partners in the other districts, sanitation district, Atmos Energy, Empire Electric are very fast in reviews and helpful. We do have engineers on contract to review kind of technical engineering documents, but a lot of stuff is done in-house. And that has been, you know, a long process and very strategic. And thanks to DOLA for giving like the local planning capacity grant to bring Lisa on and kind of building capacity in that way. We also have a contract city planner on the call. I think Nancy Dosdall's here, and she helps as needed. She's been wonderful, huge help through the land use code process. But we have been able to do a lot of stuff in-house, which is nice.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And any of our other panelists have any perspectives on collaborating with another, local government or any other external review agency that's involved? And
So in
we have a
Berthoud, we do contract with Safe Built. They are our third-party building official, and we've not had any issues with timeliness and review.
Clay or Nikki. Okay. One thing I did want to highlight for folks before we move on is that when DOLA published our original fast track guidance back in spring of 2024, one of the paragraphs in statute talks about a 90-day developer, 90-day extension that is available, is an optional policy approach a community could take. And it says 90 days at the request of the developer. And then it mentions other things like delays with that may be due to a state law or court order or review by external agencies. And originally, DOLA interpreted that paragraph as it's all 90 days for any of these things. And we had questions about that, and we dug deeper and really took a deeper interpretation of the law, asked those expert land use attorneys for their opinion, got the opinion of the Attorney General, and we eventually all concluded that actually what it means could, 90 days when a developer applicant requests a 90-day extension, or it could be potentially a longer extension when it's a court order or for external review agencies, because those are things that are outside the control of your local government, right? And so you shouldn't be found non-compliant for things that are outside of your control. But, and so I believe we'll get the link in the chat here that will point you to that new revised guidance on that topic. So please take a look at that and speak with your own attorney about how best to write that in your policy language. But also I want to emphasize that DOLA really strongly encourages you to think of this as a partnership and seek that kind of partnership agreements with your external review agencies, especially because that's how we get there, right? And we don't want that to result in, oh, delays are fine because it's out of my control. Do what is in your control to try and get agreements there. So I believe, again, I wanted to, in the next slide, well, we can go into the next question, but are there more questions in the chat to my other co-hosts, Lisa LaRanger, Jason, anyone else?
There is a question from Nancy. Has anyone had luck with getting CDOT to commit to speeding up their reviews?
Nope.
All right. DOLA is interested in learning more detailed specific examples of where external review agencies may be causing delays or and just, what's the impact? Is it driving up cost? How lengthy are the delays? If there's anything we can do, we'd like to, but it will really help if we have specific examples. So, and we've heard a few, so thanks to those who have shared those details with us. And we'll see what solutions may be possible.
There is one other question,
Great.
and I think some of the speakers have already spoken to this a little bit, but Rebecca Everett from Larimer County asks, how is city or town leadership supporting your efforts to work with different departments on developmental review? And are you seeing any shifts in mindsets or priorities at the executive level?
Clay, is that something you might be able to speak to?
Sure. Hi, Rebecca. Good morning. We have an executive team that meets every other month that focuses on development review items. We're getting ready to have kind of like a development review executive team summit here in a few, I think towards the end of the year. And really the concept behind that is to come up with agreements at the leadership level about a commitment to development review and really trying to focus the energies of our staff on achieving some of these broader policy objectives. I think historically we've had a challenge with folks in the city having different priorities because their focus of their job is either on utilities or forestry, what have you. And really, I think what we're trying to do is gain that agreement and commitment to also providing that level of service to the development community, since ultimately our development partners help build our cities and eventually people live in those buildings. And that means that we're really serving our community and people that live in our community via the development review process and really trying to get people oriented towards that mission. And I would say we've had pretty good success. We've had some changes in leadership that are bringing some different values to the conversation what we had historically. And so I feel like we're making progress there, but it's been, a long road for sure, and is really challenging. But I think this process has really helped too, because I think it's put our feet to the fire a little bit to commit to having like a really specific target goal for certain types of development. And I think that will then help us make some of those transitions and culture changes for other types of development too.
And that's thank you for saying it that way, Clay, because I think that's why the law allowed 3 years for local governments to implement, because this is not easy in some communities. And, some communities like Cortez maybe were pretty timely process, but this does kind of get everyone on the same page, hopefully moving in the same direction. Any other panelists want to chime in on that before we move to the next question? All right, we do have some good things in the chat. I do want to recognize Matt's asked a great question. Does the 90-day review process include time that the applicant is making revisions to the application, or is it the time that the application is in the hands of the reviewing agency? It's a great question and one that we are trying to clarify for folks. The idea of a shot clock is that it pauses while it's not with the local government, and that's not what Prop 123 says. Prop 123 does require a 90-day continuous process, 90 days or less, but it's also per application, just to clarify, right? So it's not 90 days for a multi-application entitlement process. It's 90 days for a site plan, 90 days for a conditional use permit, 90 days or less. But it doesn't pause. So again, back to the partnership, it's really critical that you're talking to maybe you're even putting specificity in your policy that says the city will respond in this amount of time and the developer applicant has this much time to respond. And in that way, we will both move through that 90-day process together. And that's why it also allows those extensions when it's needed. So I do want to move us on, though, because our next question that's been up on the screen, but it's about, how do you define a complete application? Because the law says that the 90-day process begins with a complete application, not the submittal, because as we've heard from many communities, often incomplete submittals from applicants. And so it doesn't begin until you have a complete application, but that means the local government really needs to define what constitutes a complete application and ideally provide some clear guidance to applicants so that they're not guessing, right? Like every community is different. What does your community need from me? Is it a stamped or signed form? Is it, what specifically, and then how have you approached this, either through checklists, pre-app meetings, that kind of thing. So let's rotate who starts, and maybe let's go to Anne in Berthoud.
Thanks. So right now we have a pretty robust pre-application process for all applicants, and it's going to be a little bit more hand-holding for the fast track applicants. We're going to do that pre-application meeting, and we might follow up with a charrette, and that would involve all of the referral agencies, including CDOT if needed, the school district, anybody that would be impacted by the project. And it would then provide a little bit more design and infrastructure input for the applicant. They are going to have that really explicit, robust guidebook, and then the process flow diagrams that will be provided to them as well for all processes. And they'll be able to follow that through very quickly. Our intent is to get them through some of that first review that unfortunately we do a lot of, again, that design through development review. We want to get them through that first scrubbing before they submit that application, so that when they submit that first application, hopefully they submit it once, do one full round of review, submit it the second time, maybe do that mini round of review, and then they're done. That's our intent, to get them in and out very quickly with more robust hand-holding up front. While we don't want that robust hand-holding to delay things, we're wanting it to be more information providing that they would get through that first round of review, but to give them, oh, if I could call it like the inside scoop, so that when they do submit, it's a really complete application. And again, that we can go to that 50-yard line. We need that developer to meet us at the 50-yard line too, for this incentive for this fast track project. And again, we're going to have the specialized workflows. We're going to have a very detailed guidebook with checklists. It's going to be a lot of hand-holding. It's going to be a lot of special shepherding through that process, because we want them to be successful and we want them to be committed.
Thank you so much. And just a time check, I've realized that we are at 9:50 and we do want to try and wrap up in the next few minutes, so that, or not that, we have till the top of the hour, but we want to make sure folks can get to their next meetings. But let's quickly go to our other panelists. Let's go Nikki, Clay, and then Lisa. Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, so we defined a complete application as something that makes it through our two-step intake process. So we have a completeness review and a sufficiency review, and both of those were implemented as part of our process study that we did as recommendations. And so the completeness is really just checking for really basic kind of things. So we have some naming conventions. We are making sure the documents are ADA compliant to be compliant with other state laws, and then that they have everything that's on the checklist. And then sufficiency is kind of that next step of, does this application actually have everything that we need to review it? Because we had a major issue with the quality of submittals. And this has still been a little bit of a fighting point for our development community. In terms of getting this to a good place. One of the exercises that we did in preparing for this sufficiency review was updating our submittal standards manual. We've had it for several decades. It has been a long time since it's been comprehensively updated. So we did that back in May. Well, we've been doing it for a while, but it got finalized in May. And so we got that updated. And that's really kind of our benchmark as far as like, this is what we're looking for from an application. And then we're hoping to take that even a step further with AI review on the sufficiency standpoint. So we're hoping to start working on that in the next couple months here, in the next month, hopefully, to see if we can really take the human element out of there, because it's a lot harder to argue with an AI review that's saying black and white, you've met this or you haven't. And so we're really excited to see what that will do for that process, because really we just want to make sure that the documents are complete and that we have what we need to review them. And you wouldn't think that that's such a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp, but it really has been. So I think that's really the most important piece here. So
Thank you. Over to Clay.
I'll be really brief. Our process is going to look really similar to Berthoud's. We're essentially going to add a second pre-app meeting to try and set our applicants up for success when they submit first round. Because with our process, we essentially are limited to 2 rounds of review. And so I think our process is going to look pretty similar. And then to Don Threewitt's comment in the chat, we'll also need our applicants to get materials back to us within 2 weeks, essentially between rounds of review, for us to meet that 90-day timeline. So we'll set those expectations as well. And then we'll do an enhanced completeness check just to make sure that we get complete engineering documents, because that's kind of one of our big holdups. So that's generally speaking what ours is going to look like.
And real quick, on the AI for streamlining development review, that DOLA is supporting and would welcome communities that want to be part of that, and we can help fund some of the software costs for a pilot initiative. It is really can be really good, this specialized AI software, on objective criteria, right? And then there's also the subjective side of things that AI is probably not as good at, but may free up time for staff to be more involved in that. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me for more information. It is still something we're promoting. Back to Lisa and Cortez, and then we'll probably wrap up.
I'll go quickly as well. We are still small enough and have the staff capacity that we conduct plenty of pre-application meetings, even to just brainstorm with potential developers, and we really walk them through and hold their hand through the process. And determining technical sufficiency is part of our communication process with our developers. We do not currently have an engineer in-house, and that has been a bottleneck, submitting multiple requests to our external engineers for review. And so that's something that we're tying up a little bit, but basically we've got checklists, communication with our developer partners, and multiple meetings.
I want to thank our panelists so much for joining us today and sharing their insights. They've been hard at work. There are great things happening all over the state. Again, a reminder to reach out to DOLA for technical assistance. Visit that site. There are links for easily booking a technical assistance meeting or joining our Wednesday open office hours every Wednesday at 9:30 to 10:30. Future topics, the displacement mitigation strategies, October 16th, November 20th, a correction, not the land use calculator, but Lisa, please say again, it's
the Middle Income Housing Tax Credit Program.
Thank you. And then wrapping up the year with a speed networking in the holiday season, which is a lot of fun. So we'll hope you'll join us for that. Thank you again to our panelists for taking time today. Thanks for all the great questions in the chat. Join us again next month in October. Thank you, everyone. And we'll go